Do you feel like you're the only one still asking herself what her undertone is? You're not, all right? There are some questions you can ask yourself, and they seem so straightforward. Like, okay, well, if I answer these questions, then I will know. And yet, there are all kinds of subtle nuances. I've been in the beauty industry for 25 years, and one of the things that I do is help people match their undertone. And yet, my own daughter and I were having a conversation about what is her undertone. And we really couldn't tell because she could wear so many different things. It just kind of depended on the situation. So it is a little more complex than you are led to believe. But the good news is that there are some things you can do. Yes, there are basic questions you can ask, but then there are some additional steps you can take. And if all else fails, there is an option that works for everybody. So we're going to get into all of that. And hopefully by the end of our conversation, you'll have an idea of what your undertone is. I'm Michelle Fox from Michelle Fox Beauty. My website is michellefoxonline.com. I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps me achieve my next goal, which is 10,000 subscribers. I had my colors done a couple different times in my youth, and at that time it was a new concept. So this is like late 80s, early 90s, and ironically, the first time I had them done, everyone in the room, no doubt about it, she's a winter. Oh, I forgot to put my other two fingernails on. Okay, I'll do that later. Um, I wear press-ons. Anyway, I digress. No doubt about it, you were a winter, okay? And I could see it and they could see it. And that was pretty much the type of colors that I always wore. So I was on board. Maybe a year later, someone else said to me, I would love to do your colors. I just don't think that you're a winter. And at this time it was summer, and so I had some color. And when she did my colors, believe it or not, everyone in the room agreed that I was a spring. Now, winter is definitely cool undertone. Spring is not only warm, but also pastels. And so, one is saying bold, cool colors, and the other one is saying warm, soft colors. So different. So I at one time I had purchased all winter colors, and then I heard that, and then I purchased all spring colors, and over time it kind of was out of vogue, and it was like, wear whatever you want type of thing. Then I became a beauty consultant, and I learned what to look for when I'm sitting down with somebody and I'm trying to figure out if they have a yellow undertone or a pink undertone. We didn't really talk about neutral very much at all, really, that I can remember. But eventually, neutral became an option. And so that solved a lot of problems. So keep that in your back pocket, that there are such things as neutral undertones for your foundation, and that you can also find some, neutral fashion choices as well. We'll get to that in a second. But generally speaking, let's just go through the questions that people typically ask themselves to determine warm or cool. The first one is your veins. And looking at your veins, if they're obviously blue, that would indicate that you have a cool undertone. If they're obviously green, it's warm. And the new thought is, if you can't tell, that may be indicating that you have a neutral undertone. I could never tell. I would just say they're blue green. It's like they're kind of a little bit of both. So, so that's not always as cut and dry as one thinks. The other one is to put like a crisp white shirt up next to your face and compare that to like an ivory shirt. And one is likely to really make your face just come alive, where you just look very vital and vibrant, and the other could make you look just kind of washed out or sallow. And so that, again, can be really obvious in some cases. For me, depends on the time of year. So anyway, it's not all about me. So there's that. Then there's the jewelry question. If gold looks good on you, that would indicate warm. If silver looks good on you, that would indicate cool. But the fact of the matter is, jewelry is either, gold is either on trend or it's super tacky. Silver's on trend or it's so, passe. So I think we have a kind of a predisposed whether we like gold or silver has a lot more to do with the fashion trends. So I don't know that that really necessarily works. So that's my thought. So we've got those questions. The one question that I have been taught in more recent years as a beauty consultant is to find out what your skin does in the sun. The funny part with that is that we're talking like, let's say you're in the sun with no sunscreen. You're exposed to the sun, direct sun for a while. You're not supposed to ever do that. So you were basically asking you a scenario and then saying, but don't ever do that. You should always have sunscreen. Anyway, if you're in the direct sun and you for sure burn, like there's no question, you don't even pause. You're like, I burn. Every time I'm in the sun, I burn. You are cool undertone. Or if you are in the dark end of the spectrum from very, very light to very, very dark, and you're like, it doesn't matter if I'm in the sun, not in the sun, I stay the same color all year round. That is also an indication of a cool undertone. So that is a question that most of us can answer. The next one being if you tan easily. I have friends that they walk out the door and they're outside for half an hour and they're tan. It's like ridiculous. And they say, I've never burned. I don't ever remember having a sunburn. That is a warm undertone. For me, I typically will burn under very severe conditions. If I'm out like on a boat, direct sun, no sunscreen, I'll burn, but it will turn to tan, as they say. I don't know if that's a reality, but that's what we always say. It turns to tan. I will burn, but my tone will deepen. And once I get to where I have a deeper tone, then it just keeps getting darker and darker and darker. So I'm kind of like, again, kind of in the middle. And we are thinking now that that means a more of a neutral undertone. Let's pause and take this all in. All right. I really think that if you have deepened your tone, if you've deepened the intensity of your color, that it impacts the way that your undertone presents itself. I live in Michigan. Most Michiganders know that if you have a favorite foundation shade, there's going to be one that is for your winter skin and one that is for your summer skin. Sometimes they're the same undertone. For me, they are not. I'll have, one that is neutral and one that is more of a cool undertone. And so I really think that you can have, let's say, a neutral undertone leaning toward cool. Like you're not like super obviously a cool undertone. You can wear neutral, but sometimes in some cases or certain times of year, you can wear a cool undertone. That's just my thought. That's just my thought. Um, but when I am helping someone find a foundation, there is sort of a secret weapon that we use, and it's called a stripe test. And again, I ask the sun question. I'll find out, how do you react in the sun? And that gives us kind of an idea of the undertone. And then we just eyeball it and just determine, if you are on a scale, from very, very light to medium to, like a deeper beige or whatever, tan, light bronze, dark bronze, ebony, there's a spectrum and you can kind of tell like about where you fall in there. So there's two things at play when it's coming with as far as your foundation goes. You want to figure out, the depth of your skin tone and then the undertone. So we're working with both. So let's say we determine that you are, somewhere between like a deep ivory and a light beige. That's where I am. I love to talk about myself. I'm between a light or a deep ivory, light beige. I do not look good in a warm undertone ever, even though I tan really easily. Does not ever look good on me. I'm going to show you in a second. For a long time, I wore a cool undertone, and I do think I look good in that. But I had a hard time finding like the exact one. And then when neutral undertones became a thing, I played around with that, and I thought, oh, this is it. This is what I need is neutral, and it kind of can go both ways. And so I have worn neutral for a long, long time. Recently, I had just enough color in my skin that the neutral undertone that I normally wear was not working for me. I went up to a darker neutral and it looked awful. I do not like how warm foundations look on me, so I went with a darker, cool undertone, and it looked amazing. You gotta uh, sort of like ask yourself the questions, come up with what you think it is, and then you got to try things on. So when you're talking fashion, it's fantastic if you can have your color analysis done because those drapes, they really make it clear like what your season is. But I think it changes throughout the year. That's just my opinion. For undertone, as far as your foundation, you know, figure out as best you can whether you're cool or warm, where you fall in terms of intensity, and then do what we call a stripe test. So like I said, I'm like deep ivory to light beige, probably neutral. Then might find like three different foundation shades that are in that realm and compare them. And the one that blends into my skin completely is going to be my perfect match, as we say. Now, foundation actually takes time to adjust. So you need to not only blend it in, you need to give it like some dry down time to let it set. The neutral foundation that I wear or wore a lot almost had like a gray cast to it when you first put it on. And I used to sell a lot of it. And every time I would say, okay, listen, do not judge it. When you first put it on, you've got to, blend it and let it set and all that. And then eventually people are like, oh my gosh, I love it. So, lots of things there. But anyway, let me just show you just in general how the stripe test works and then also show you the difference between the different undertones. So this one, let's see. This is not my warm one. All right. I need my glasses on for this. Which one is this? This one is cool. All right. So we'll do it up in here, I guess. All right. So this is a cool undertone. You can barely see it. This one is a warm undertone. And if you don't need a warm undertone, as it dries down, it's just going to look, just jaundicey. So there's the yellow, and they're about the same depth of shade. So that's interesting too. Is if it's the right depth but the wrong undertone, it almost looks like it's not the right depth. It's interesting. This whole foundation matching thing has been very interesting over the years. All right, and then here is a neutral. Make sure that where should I put it? I'll put it way up here. And here's my neutral. Do you see it? I don't have my glasses on, so I can barely see anything. I don't have my glasses on because I wanted you to see my makeup, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. All right, so we had the cool, and then the warm, and then the neutral. And so what we would do then is kind of blend it down at the bottom. I guess I say bottom weird. It's a Michigan accent thing, so I'm kind of self-conscious of that. And then whichever one just like really disappears is the one. And to me, I think that the darker one, excuse me, not the darker, the cooler one disappears really, really well. But I don't care for the warm. And then the neutral, I think I can get away with. You know what I mean? That's what I wore most of the time. Like, see how it's kind of gray? It needs to blend in. Here, let's do that, and then you'll see how that happens, how that works. All right. I have had cases where we've done this, and all three of them seem like they disappear. So it's not an exact science, all right? Truly, I just did that series on what eyeshadow shades make your eyes pop depending on your eye color. And I kept repeating that it truly comes down to what makes you feel beautiful. And in the same way, like if you are just like so frustrated with this whole undertone thing, you're like, I don't know, I can't tell. Which one do you like? Which one do you like the best? When you put it on, you feel like it just looks nice. And the idea that you're going to find a foundation that is 100% the same shade for your face and your neck is incorrect. Your neck rarely gets any sun. Your neck is always going to be lighter than your face. So, that is an unrealistic expectation, okay? So, all right, I feel like I need to get that off now. The next thing I want to chat about as far as undertone goes is that I have always heard that our undertone changes as we age. Like I have heard that many times. And even seen like pictures of it, like, look at Meryl Streep when she was young versus old. And it really looked like she went from warm to cool. But as I researched it current day, word on the street is that our undertone does not change, that our undertone is a genetic trait, that we're born with it and it remains the same. So, what's happening as we age is that there are things happening on the surface that impact how the undertone is perceived. So, tell me if you agree. We start getting age spots, sunspots. So that's dark, that's brown. That's going to impact, how that undertone looks. Or we can get redness and ruddiness. That's red, pink. That's going to impact how it looks. Our skin, sadly, unless we really work at it, becomes duller and just lacks that bright, dewy, that youthful glow, and that is going to impact how it looks. It's almost like putting, what's it called, Vaseline on top of something. You can't see the pure color anymore because there's something, dulling it, and so that is happening. Then factor in that many of us start shifting our hair color. So in my youth, I have very dark hair with fairly light skin, unless it was summertime. And like I said, most people thought of me as a winter, and I wore bold colors. This is the 80s, so I did a lot of fuchsia. But as I am getting older, my colorist and I are going a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. And my mom wears sort of an auburn brown. She was very dark brunette as a young person, and now she's doing more of like an auburn brown, a little softer, a little lighter. It is wise to go a little softer and lighter as we age. And then all the way up to, there was a year where I grew my gray out. And so my hair was pretty much white with little patches of black. And so the contrast between my skin and my hair was not what it used to be. And that really impacted how I looked, the colors that I looked good in. So there are many things happening, which again is why here's my bottom line is like, do you definitely have an undertone? Yes, you do. Is it as easy to determine as one might think, looking at the little questions and the questionnaires online? It's not always that easy. Okay. Sometimes it's just a tough one. Maybe you're neutral leaning pink, or you're neutral leaning yellow, or you're olive, which is really none of those three. Olive is kind of its own thing altogether. So yes, you have an undertone. It's a great idea to figure it out. It's not always as easy as people make it sound. And there are things that impact it. There are things that impact it as we age, as we have sun exposure, as we change our hair color. And so, in all things beauty and fashion, what makes you feel beautiful is the right choice, without a doubt. Okay. If you have, through this conversation, thought to yourself, I'm warm. I'm 92% sure that I'm warm or cool, or oh my gosh, I'm neutral. That's the answer that I've been looking for. I'm actually neutral. There are some makeup colors and fashion colors that work for you that I'll just mention real quick, because in case you're like, I didn't realize I was warm and now I know. So let's chat about that. Like, what kind of makeup shades should you be looking for? Okay, so if you have determined that you have a cool undertone, I think we're aware that pink is going to look fantastic. So in the pink realm, you have berries, burgundies. Now, rose is a funny one because rose can go either way. Sometimes people call it rose when it has a lot of red, pink in there, but I've seen rose where it's got some gold in it too. So that's kind of questionable. But for sure, anything that has a pink or more red than yellow is going to look fantastic. A blue red, as far as your red, you want to go with a blue red or a true red, wine, burgundy, if you're doing something really deep. And for your eye colors, again, you can go back and watch my video series on the right eyeshadow shades for your eye color. But as far as your undertone, If you are a cool undertone, you're looking at cool taupe or gray or grayish. Um, for me, I like to wear like a real soft pink. It almost looks white, but there's a hint of pink as my highlight. And then my midtone is like a taupe, a cool taupe. So those are important. And all right, let me refer back to that series. We talked about once you know your undertone or your seasonal colors, that when it comes to eyeshadow, that you want to stick with that, your undertone for your highlight and your midtone. But if you want to pump up the jams, I don't know where that came from. If you want to play with some color, if you want, that pop of color, something fun, that your accent color can be whatever. It can be the thing, your complementary color, an analogous color, a trendy color, whatever, that you can play with that accent color and not have to be so concerned about your undertone. Moving on. Let's say you are a warm undertone. Then we're talking about your blush is going to be more of a peachy coral, or if you want something really deep, sort of a terracotta or a brick red. Your lipstick then for a red lipstick is going to be more of an orangey red or a warm red, tomato red. Again, you can wear a true red. Like I think a fire engine red is like red, and red is neutral. Okay. So, but as far as what other shades, you're going to lean more brown as opposed to pink. Anything, like I said, rose can be like a really pinky rose, or it can have almost like a watermelon kind of a look. That's going to lean warm. When it comes to your eye colors, things that are going to be more natural for you are going to have a yellow base. So it can be sort of an ivory, gold, copper, bronze, those types. But if you don't want a shimmery finish, then I use something called biscotti, which is, like the color of bread. So it's a white, but just a little hint of yellow in there. And then when you're looking at your browns, that can be tricky, but there are cool browns and there are warm browns. So, and oftentimes when you purchase makeup, in the description, it will say if it's a cool undertone or a warm undertone, because more and more makeup companies and makeup artists are realizing that that is a significant thing for you to know. If it doesn't provide that information, you may even be able to call their customer service number. If you really want to know, I think it's a great idea to get like a base highlight color for your eyeshadow and a mid-tone color that are the correct undertone for you, to get a foundation that is the correct undertone for you. If you're in Michigan, that will probably be 2 foundations. And so did we talk about eye colors? Yeah. And then for neutral, obviously, as the word implies, it's sort of like anything goes. If you're neutral, if you're Switzerland, I don't know, I'm kind of punchy, not sure why. Um, you can play with all kinds of stuff, but you will find some that you like better than others and just make note of it. But when I think of things that are kind of middle of the road, I'm thinking like mauves and dusty rose and like a plum. Plum can lean, purples can lean either red or blue. So, play with some of those colors. Rosy brown lipsticks, nude lipsticks are going to look fantastic. Earth tone shades in both warm and cool. So like the Naked palette, it's got all of the real earthy shades, but it's all different in terms of there's some warms, there's some cools, there's some light, there's some dark. So you get to play around and kind of figure out what you like best. So I have a very bad habit, I guess, of talking around in circles and not really answering the question. I hope you don't feel like that, but yes, you have an undertone. Yes, it is significant. It actually doesn't change as we age. But I also think it's equally important to take into account the depth of our skin tone, our hair color, and our personal preferences. So, someone specifically asked me to talk about undertone, and I don't know that this was helpful or not. I hope so. I just can't stress enough that if it makes you feel beautiful, go for it. Confidence is beautiful. And really, it's all about that. So let me know in the comments what you're thinking. Be respectful. I always wait for someone to put in there, like, I think you're crazy. Anyway, let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what your undertone story is. If maybe you thought it was one and you found out later that it's something different, or if you, like me, feel like, well, this time of year it's this, and this time of year it seems like it changes. Because while your true actual undertone doesn't change, it's genetic, the way that it shows up, the way that it appears visually can be impacted by external factors. Okay. So I find it really interesting. Now, the reason I chose not to wear my glasses today is because I wanted you to see my beautiful makeup. So this really did turn out really nice. I am starting a series of makeup looks. And next week, I'm doing this berry noir look. So it is exactly this right here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually doing it live beginning next Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So, something that's super fun about this is that I've scheduled out several of these live makeup tutorials. You can see the calendar on YouTube and my Facebook business page. And if you see a makeup look that you want to try with me, you can either find colors in your repertoire that work, that are similar, or you can reach out to me and I'll let you know how you can get samples of exactly what I'm using. So I got something up my sleeve for that. So thanks for watching. I can't wait to hear your comments and your thoughts. I hope this was helpful. Like I said, if you haven't yet subscribed, I know I'm like a broken record, but we need to get to 10,000, my friends. And when we do, you'll find out why. It's going to be awesome. I have a freebie for you always in the written blog. If you scroll down, you'll see your opportunity to click and claim your copy of Age Defying Beauty Hacks. It is also in the body, the description of my YouTube video. And there's also a link that you can click in that description to go to my written blog, which has more details and information and things that you can download and save. So, lots of information. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I always do. And if you're new, welcome. It's been so exciting. We've had lots of new subscribers recently, and that just really warms the cockles of my heart. So thanks so much. Can't wait for this new series, and I will see you next week. And I'm going to go do my nails right now. I promise. I'll see you then.